Welcome to today's episode, and we're looking at mental health. Mental health has become such a great deal in today's society, and we really need to give it an emphasis. Of course, as a recap, if you've never heard about mental health, then you just need to know that it is all about four main compartments. The first one is one's ability to relate with others. The second one is one's ability to handle stresses in life with grace and resilience. Third one, are you able to know just how far you can go on matters your abilities and your weaknesses? Are you able to identify them so that you can work on them? And the very last one, are you functioning properly in life? So those four key parameters make up what you call mental health. So now when it comes to the whole issue of assessing mental health, you don't look out for fever or the rest, but we look out for four main things. We look at somebody's behavior, we look at somebody's thinking pattern, we look at somebody's emotions, we'll also look at one's perception. We all know by now that perception is simply how you respond to your senses. And senses here I mean sight, what you're seeing, what you're hearing, mostly. And perhaps some people will now, when you are responding inappropriately to what you're seeing, you could be having issues to do with dysmorphopsia or metamorphopsia. Perhaps you might even be seeing things that don't exist completely. That is hallucination. And when we're thinking about thought patterns, we will be assessing, are you able to construct sentences which then end up to form paragraphs that actually make sense? If they do make sense, then you don't have any mental health issues on matters pertaining how you're thinking. But if you're having issues constructing a sentence, perhaps you start saying something and you get lost in the middle and you struggle to remember, then that will be thought blocking. Sometimes somebody is just having issues and you can't construct a sentence. Everything you're saying doesn't make sense at all. It's a complete distortion of just how you're organizing words. Then that becomes word salad. Plus many others we have. All the issues to do with loosening of attachment and flight of ideas. You notice that all these symptoms are actually associated with certain mental health issues. Now, it is very important to note that while considering mental issues, well, I know that there are so many mental issues out there, but what are the main ones? We'll always be considering either depression, we are looking at anxiety, we are looking at substance use disorder, we are looking at the whole issue of schizophrenia or psychotic disorders. And then we are also into so much to do with probably dementia, which possibly comes about by age. Now, how then do we get down to be able to say this is depression and not anxiety, this is anxiety and not say bipolar disorder because it's also common, or this is perhaps maybe substance use disorder and not the whole issue of bipolar? We must be able to consider a set of symptoms. When we talk about a set of symptoms, we are saying that one symptom will never diagnose a mental health issue. You can't look at one thing and then say somebody has got a mental issue. No. You have to look at quite a number of varieties. In the mood, are you looking at this person extremely sad, or is he extremely happy to an extent that all this happiness or sadness is now affecting daily functionality? And you're also making sure that whatever you are highlighting is not just a one-time occurrence. It should be consistent. So now we are looking at for us to diagnose a mental health issue, it must be a set of symptoms from thinking to mood to perception to the whole issue of behavior. We look at all those four parameters and we need to have several considerations in each. when you look at the whole issue of this whole consistency, then we must know that each mental health issue, someone must experience the symptom for a certain specific duration. For example, when talking about depression, then we expect you to have experienced extreme sadness that it affects your sense of functionality in your daily life for 2 weeks consistently. So if you just felt sad yesterday, but today you're okay, you can't say, hey, yesterday I was depressed. No, for us to see depression, we must be able to see extreme sadness, extreme disturbed sleep, extreme, feelings of loneliness, even though you are in a multitude of people. But it should be for a long period of time, for at least 2 weeks. When talking about anxiety, you're just fearing something that is unknown. You have discomfort, it could be in public or even when you are alone, but you're having a discomfort or fear or intense tension regarding the outcome of something that you don't know. And all these symptoms must have been able to last for at least 6 months. Now, when we get to the whole issue of bipolar disorder, we must be able to see clear evidence that someone really showed the whole issue of extreme sadness, but then was able to show extreme happiness to an extent that it affected his functionality or it's affected your functionality within the past 6 months. If we just see happiness alone, then that is not yet that is not yet bipolar. If we see extreme sadness alone, that is not yet bipolar. We need to be able to see the combination of these two. Now, when it comes to substance use disorder, my attention is it's not only the issue of alcohol alone. There are many other addictions that exist today. And most of these people usually tend to experience perception disorders, especially visual disorders, because or visual symptoms, like say metamorphopsia, where you look at things and someone is standing, but every other person is seeing a standing person. You are seeing a wavy person. So you try to, it's like, people are slanting to a certain angle. Or perhaps you see people as being very reduced in size. No wonder you feel like you have some supernatural powers that are responsible for your too gigantic or too big nature. That is some of the things that we watch out for in substance use disorder. And you see, it has to do with the whole issue of chronic dependence on certain harmful drugs or drinks for a long period of time that continues reoccurring even though they're affecting your daily functionality. And this should be for 1 full year. However, when this principle was being put in place, it's mostly considered the whole issue of alcohol. But there are some opioid drugs that you get addicted to them within a very short time. It doesn't need to be a full year. When we talk about the whole issue of dementia, we can never diagnose dementia unless we take someone through a CT scan. Because remember that for us to be able to even diagnose you with a mental health issue, we must be able to first of all rule out any related medical condition. So you can't just come to the hospital and the first diagnosis you say is you have a mental health issue. No, at least you should be able to rule out all other related medical complications before we now pull you over to the whole issue of mental health. So these four are the major ones, and I know that you have learned from these five, sorry, are the major ones, and I know that you've learned various mental health disorders from other related either modules or the internet and so forth. But you notice that there's usually a very big problem when it comes to diagnosis or differentiation between a mental health disorder and a mental health symptom. A symptom is just a sign experienced by a person who has a certain disorder. So I want us to know that there are so many symptoms, and all of them we relate them to these six main. Okay, dementia makes the sixth mental health disorder, but Until we do a CT scan, we will not be able to prove it. That's why we center our discussion to mostly five disorders: depression, anxiety, bipolar, substance use abuse, and substance use disorder, and the whole issue of bipolar. Now, once we are able to know all that, then the whole consideration is we should be able to identify a set of symptoms that are associated with all these issues. And to suffer from a mental health disorder is not something we should be ashamed of. It should be something that we should look out for help. Because if not attended to, it can be so severe. And yet, there's usually hope. Sometimes a problem to you might not be a problem to me, or I might even have just a listening ear that will make your situation easy. So, in our day to day activities, let us focus on just being able to be that sister's keeper. How are you feeling? It's such a powerful statement. And there's how are you feeling a general one, and how are you feeling intentionally to just assess are your stresses today so heavy for you so we can share? Are you maybe having some intense whole issues of being unable to utilize your abilities well? Are you having problems to relate with people that are then making you unable to do your daily activities properly? We can always be able to assess ourselves in those four parameters to just know where are we in our journey of mental health. Because you like it or not, every one of us, each at any point in life, we have a certain level of mental health. And sometimes we can be this whole issue of mental health is actually a continuum. We can be at the good mental health status where we are handling our stress as well. Not that we don't have stress. You are having a good mental health when you're able to handle your stress well, when you're functioning well, when you're relating with people well, to an extent that whatever is happening in your private life is not even affecting people. And finally, you're able to utilize your abilities well as you improve on your weaknesses. But when you can have mild of at risk of mental health disorders. If your stress is now becoming a little bit overwhelming, we are not seeing functional impairment yet. You're still able to carry through your day, do the normal activities that we usually do, but there's a problem. You're starting to feel so worn out. So carrying through the day, it's like you are really struggling. Then there is moderate mental health status where you are now starting to experience issues or entire issues to do with difficulties to just function properly. You are a student, you can't attend classes fully. You are a lecturer, you are not able to really teach fully, maybe because there's so much that is maybe the workload is so much that is happening. So to balance is becoming a problem. You are maybe a practitioner out there. It's becoming so overwhelming you can't even show up on time at work. That is moderate. It has just started. We can see some deviations. It's not like you are missing classes completely as a student or you're missing lectures completely as a lecturer. No. But the whole issue is you have just started anything, I can miss this, no big deal. You are now starting to experience what we call a loss of interest in mental health, which is anhedonia. And sometimes you can even extend it to just have some bit of, I don't care. I mean, I also have things happening in my own life, and I just don't care whether I am unable to do what I'm supposed to do on a daily basis. That is like prolonged laziness, which is just apathy. Then the last phase is where we talk about the whole issues of severe mental health disorder. It can be so severe to an extent that you can not do the things that you were supposed to do completely. You have switched off, you have decided to change to just a new person. If you're a student, you can no longer attend classes. If you're a lecturer, you just cannot attend your lectures and other duties. That is severe. So you can see the whole degree is just on the ability of to what extent is your daily functioning affected. If you're doing very good, no issues, that is a good mental health. If you have some stressors that are becoming a little bit overwhelming, then that is at that particular day we can say you are at risk of a mental health disorder. If it continues consistently. When there's a little bit of effect where you can see reduced productivity, then you just and reduced functionality consistently for some time, then we can just say that you're now at a level where you have moderate risk of mental health disorder. Then when you no longer care about your daily functioning and you're just overwhelmed and you're in another world, perhaps you've even developed different interests and you're depending on other things to get your pleasure that you could get from your work or you could get from attending class, then that simply means that you are at a severe risk of mental health disorder. So this whole mental health issue is actually a continuum. I believe that should be able to just remind us that in our daily lives, can we pause and just assess ourselves, where are we in terms of our mental health? Because it is very important. If you're not good, you will not perform well. And when we talk, and I know you cannot talk to everybody this day and age, but I mean, you can always locate somebody who has, either that hearing or who even has probably just some professional experiences, that because there are skills that we possess that will now help you to share out. And you see, that sharing out, perhaps we will not give you drugs. Like at my level, I can't give you drugs. But what do I have? I actually have some guidance and some linkages that can help when it comes to the whole issue of mental health. And this is where, at this point, is where we introduce psychosocial interventions in mental health. What are psychosocial interventions in mental health? These are simply methods that base on improving our thoughts and how we relate with other people so that eventually our mental health status can improve. So this method of addressing mental health issues does not depend on prescribing any drugs. It just depends on being able to work on your mind and work on your social life so that at the very end, and the social life here is just how we relate with people, so that at the very end, you see an improvement in your mental health. What then is the goal of psychosocial interventions when dealing with mental health? The goal is just to make sure that number one, you cope with your challenge. Number two, we reduce the severity of your challenge. Number three, we ensure that there is no relapse to your challenge. You just put in mechanisms to ensure that there is no relapse on your challenge. Number four is to make sure that general productivity at personal and the community and national level doesn't go down, because you have so much in you and you can only give the so much in you when you are at your best. So psychosocial interventions come in to ensure that we ensure that you give the best when it comes to your daily productivity, which cumulatively will bring about productive family, productive community, and eventually a productive nation and international international capabilities, because at the end of the day, the global space is ours for the taking. But you can only do that when we are at our best. Who then can give you psychosocial interventions? Now, this whole issue of psychosocial interventions is organized in levels, just like healthcare is organized in levels. Like, for example, in Kenya, the first level of healthcare is actually at the community. So, at the community, we still have people who can teach us or who can offer psychosocial interventions. Once again, psychosocial interventions are simply methods of addressing mental health issues that are built on the basis of just improving one's thinking pattern, that will then tend to improve the person's behavior as well as the person's way of interaction with other people. When we just do that without using any medical, without administering any drugs, then we say we are carrying out psychosocial interventions. So who can do these psychosocial interventions? We have said they are organized from just like healthcare, from the community to the very highest level. At the community level, we have the families, and the families are made up of different people. We have leaders and so forth. So at community level, that is level one, we have the people who can offer psychosocial help or psychosocial interventions when it comes to mental health. And number one, the family members. Number two, the community leaders. Number three, the teachers. Because I don't think that a teacher is only limited to a school. A teacher has actually the ability to change a community, because every opportunity they have is a teaching opportunity. And when somebody is just able to tell you, you know what, we can do this and this and this, offer that hearing to you, then that is a teacher who is able to transform such and to contribute to such a big transformation in your life. And the fact that a teacher can actually mentor someone who didn't know so much into somebody who even, comes to do wonders later, that particular teacher can be trusted with the whole issues of offering psychosocial interventions at primary level. Then we're at community level. Then we go to level one, where in the health facilities, because you see, mental health is also part of health. So in the health facilities here, this level one, okay, we have the community. Then level two, we now have what we call the dispensaries. In the dispensaries, perhaps we are likely to find a nurse, sometimes a doctor also. So at this particular level, and the doctor that will be found here is a general physician, not a specialist one. So at this particular level two, which is simply a dispensary, then the people who will actually offer that psychosocial intervention is the nurse who is present, because they actually have a whole module, and some are even whole specialists. That is what they went to school to do with regard to management of mental health. So they are very much trusted at that level. Sometimes there's some dispensaries that are actually led by nurses, and that they can offer that care at a level two. Level three, where we have health centers, still we don't have so much specialized doctors here, but they are nurses, and well, we don't even have other specialist cadres at this point. So nurses and general physicians will still be our catch for those who will be able to offer the whole issue of mental health. At level four, we are now getting to sub-counties and sub-county hospitals. At this point, we are seeing other cadres. Yes, there are nurses they will still offer. We are seeing other cadres, there are nutritionists, there are all other medical personnel now coming in, they can offer. At this level, we have not yet seen a person who is maybe a full psychologist or a psychiatrist. As we go to level four, to level five, which is the county referral, some county referrals probably are incorporating psychologists in their plan right now, because of just how important mental health issues are. So feel free to contact a psychologist and so forth. And as you do that, at level six, that is when now we have the psychiatrists who are now highly specialized, and they can even do very specialized services, including forensic analysis of mental health issues. So the psychiatrists will actually find them on this mostly the teaching and referral hospital. So you can see mental health, just like any other field of health, is covered from the community level to the very highest level. It's only that perhaps we didn't pay so much attention to it before. But now that you know, just don't die with your issue. Don't allow yourself to go so down on matters of just your ability to utilize or to carry through your day productively, just by assuming that you're okay. Anytime you notice that there are some signs that are making you to decrease your productivity for a very long time, don't be in hesitation. Make sure that you take a step. In your community, there's somebody at level one, there's always somebody even at the dispensary, at the health center, and so forth. And the structure is not any different from what we do in the general health care. Mental health is still part of health.